Photography is a tougher pursuit than many give it credit for, and can be very expensive if you want to make sure you've got the best equipment possible. This means that some who may be hoping to get into it, either as a hobby or professionally, could find a number of stumbling blocks that prevent them from fully testing out their skills in real life. Well, thankfully, there's an entire subsection of video games that will allow you to fulfill your artistic camera-based desires by allowing for, or even requiring, in-game picture taking. Now, of course, more and more games are featuring photo modes, so if you want to be pedantic, there are an ever-increasing number of titles that we could recommend in order to release your inner shutterbug. However, in this specific case, we're not interested in photo modes, but photo mechanics, meaning that the gameplay itself features or centres around taking snapshots. So gear up and get ready to put things in perspective, because I'm Ashton from TripleJump, and here are 10 video games for aspiring photographers. Number 10, The Bradwell Conspiracy. Were I to be trapped in a collapsed building, I can't say that photography would be that high on my list of things to worry about. However, in the Bradwell Conspiracy, pictures are integral to progressing through the facility and ultimately, hopefully, escaping. The player finds themselves in the shoes of a particularly unfortunate tourist who has been trapped in the Bradwell Stonehenge Museum after a massive collapse. As their vocal cords were damaged when the incident occurred, the protagonist is unable to talk directly to the other survivor, Amber, who has also been trapped somewhere in the facility. Thanks to the Bradwell guide glasses they have on though, they are able to instantly snap and send photos back and forth, using them to build rapport and solve puzzles as they make their way forward and eventually start discovering some horrifying truths. The photography in this one is admittedly a bit less interactive than most, as there is no visible in-game camera or any particular nuance to the photo taking. But though it's not a flawless experience, the photo mechanic is unlike those seen in most other games, and allows for some witty back and forth as the two characters work together to escape. Number 9, Gekisha Boy. A lot of games featuring photography tend to be a bit more slow-paced, giving you time to line up the perfect shot. Our next game, though, is anything but. Gekisha Boy, or Gekabo for short, follows David Goldman, an amateur photographer who has enrolled in the Los Angeles Photography School in order to further master his craft. Unfortunately, just as he's starting to improve, both of his parents are killed, and he loses motivation and plans to drop out. Before he's able to though, the head of the school offers him a deal. Take 8 special pictures and he'll still be able to graduate. Despite not being much of a consolation, David takes him up on this and proceeds through the chaotic streets, taking as many pictures as he can as he goes. Each level has one specific goal that players have to keep an eye out for, but they'll also get points for catching random events and strange things in the environment as they make their way forward. If they're successful, they'll graduate as an S-tier photographer, and David will never mention his parents again. There was meant to be a European release of the game as well, instead called Polaroid Pete, but apart from an initial announcement, nothing ever came of it. I guess you could say it was underdeveloped. Anyone? Number 8, Toem. Well, after all that city chaos, it's time to relax a little bit again, and this time go for a stroll through some peaceful natural landscapes and small towns. Following another young photographer with a presumably less tragic backstory than the last one, Toem tasked the small protagonist with making their way up to the peak of the nearby mountain in order to witness the eponymous phenomenon, whatever it may be. Along the way, they will stop in a variety of towns and districts full of folks who need assistance. In order to help them out, the player must use their camera, shifting into first-person mode and finding clues and solutions to their problem or the puzzles that they have been given. Once they've collected enough stamps, players can take the bus and progress to the next area, where they'll do it all over again until they finally reach the peak of the mountain. With clever puzzles, fun characters, and a great soundtrack, Toem is a brilliant experience for anyone looking for a short, relaxing, memorable time. Number 7, Pupperazzi. Do you like dogs just as much as photography? Do you dream of a job where you can be around dogs all day? Well, we've got a treat for you now, because Pupperazzi might just be the thing for you. Players will find themselves in a world full of all sorts of dogs, and will take on the form of a humanoid camera in order to go around and fill different requests, trying their best to rack up followers on Dognet. They have to be careful not to post too many though, as they'll start to be accused of spamming, and followers are the only way to progress to the new area of the island. Each quest the player takes on rewards them with both followers and golden bones, the latter of which are used to purchase upgrades that help take care of even more complex requests as they continue. Though it's a bit rough around the edges, no pun intended, Pupperazzi is a short, cute game great for dog lovers, as long as you ignore the possible implications of being a horrible human-camera hybrid thing. Oh no, I'm thinking about it again. Let's move on, quick. Number 6, 1111, Memories Retold. We've all heard that war never changes, but war will seemingly always be recreated in video games. Not many tend to focus on the First World War, however, and even fewer task the player with becoming someone who's not directly involved in the fighting. But 1111, Memories Retold, takes a unique approach when presenting its narrative, and I'm not just talking about the art style. Play is split between two different characters. Kurt, a German engineer who has joined the military after learning that his son's unit has gone missing, and Harry, a Canadian photographer who is chasing after glory and the love of his childhood friend. Players can switch between their perspectives at any time, and each interacts with the world around them in different ways, with Kurt able to interact with electronics and thus take care of puzzles, and Harry taking pictures of different points of interest and presenting the war however he sees fit. Players can't just take photos all over the place though, as they're limited to just 16 shots per day, and have to think carefully about what exactly they're going to present, and how it will affect Harry's future career. From the director who created Valiant Hearts: The Great War, this title is yet another emotional reflection on the nature of conflict, told with a unique twist. Number 5, Alba, a wildlife adventure. Right, that all got a bit heavy there, didn't it? Let's move on, shall we? And take a look at the environmental impact of expanding infrastructure on vulnerable animals. Oh, great. Despite also touching some pretty serious topics, Alba, a wildlife adventure, is overall a cute adventure game, following the titular protagonist and her family and friends as they try to make their lovely Mediterranean island a popular tourist destination once again, while fighting against the mayor and developer who want to replace the wildlife refuge with a massive luxury hotel. By taking her camera around the island and documenting the various species there, Alba is slowly able to rebuild public interest in the town, as well as collect signatures for the petition she and her friend made to help save the refuge from its imminent destruction. Some can be a bit of a challenge to find, but by exploring new areas, cleaning up trash, rebuilding structures, and helping out injured wildlife, Alba may even be able to get a glimpse at the elusive native lynx. Right, now we've gotten some practice in tracking down animals, let's see what else we can do with this expertise. Number 4, Pokemon Snap. It's hardly a list about photography-based games if this iconic snap 'em up doesn't appear, is it? If you're somehow unfamiliar with the premise of Pokemon Snap, it's essentially a rail shooter, but instead of blasting zombies whilst losing loads of pounds to an arcade machine, you're shooting pictures of various Pokemon. I am going to assume you at least know what Pokemon are. If not, I think you might have clicked on the wrong video. And also, I hope you had a lovely 300-year nap. This isn't always as easy as point and shoot though, as some of the creatures are hidden or require special upgrades, and each picture is rated by Professor Oak once the player returns, with extra points being awarded for special poses and decent framing. If you prefer something a little more sleek and modern, there's also New Pokemon Snap, which packs all the fun of the original in, alongside the new Pokemon that I've never heard of because I'm now old and don't know anything past Gen 2. Don't mind me. I'm just going to have a ever so brief existential crisis over here in the corner. That was how long ago? Number 3, Martha is Dead. Full disclosure before we get into this one, yeah? Martha is Dead is grim and absolutely not for everyone. However, if you have the stomach for it, and the headspace for a psychological thriller, it actually features some pretty in-depth photography as well. Set during the other war this time around, at a Tuscan home in German-occupied Italy, this troubling story follows Julia and her mental decline in the days after her sister Martha's mysterious death. Over the course of the story, players will have to use an old camera and develop the film in order to progress, something which is authentically and almost fully replicated. This means players have to make sure that their subjects are in focus, at a proper distance and not overexposed by using the various dials and settings on their camera. camera. On top of all of this, they're also required to actually develop the photos themselves, and players will have to be sure that objective-based prints are properly sized and sat in the liquid long enough before they're able to continue their harrowing journey. Thankfully, despite how true to life it is otherwise, there is unlimited film in this one, so if you prefer, you can just spend your time taking pictures of the scenery. Can't say I blame you. Number 2, Umurongi Generation. Let's move on and leave all the grim stuff behind us, shall we? Taking place on the North Island of Aotearoa, or New Zealand if you want to get English about this, in the near future, Umurongi Generation follows the Maori courier who earns a living by taking and delivering photos for their clients alongside their friends and also a penguin. Once again, the task here is to take snaps of certain objects or tableaus with certain lenses, but presents many different ways to approaching the same image and lets the player edit or add effects as much as they like. As they progress, the objectives will get more difficult, but it will also become steadily more obvious that something very strange is going on, and that there's a massive crisis afoot that forces the UN to deploy both soldiers and a massive mech fleet that they apparently now have to the area, which is met with strong resistance from the locals. By using their camera, the courier is able to not only document what's happening to their surroundings, but take a look at their situation through a literal lens, watching as their world changes forever. And number 1, Lush Foil Photography Sim. All these games are great and all, but what could be better for someone interested in photography than an actual photography simulator? As is kind of implied by the title, Lush Foil Photography Sim utilises the power of Unreal Engine 5 and provides players with highly detailed, incredibly accurate recreations of vistas from around the world. In addition to this, they're also able to use all the same settings that can be found on a high-end DSLR camera, as well as take advantage of a drone for a particularly dramatic shot. In order to capture the perfect moment, the weather conditions can be tweaked and manipulated, and each environment has special objects and secrets for those who are willing to seek them out. If you prefer focusing on snapping pics of animals, this isn't even the only simulator available. The helpfully but confusingly similarly named Photography Simulator instead focuses on wildlife tracking to truly test your skills and patience. A cheeky little 2-for-1 entry there. Don't say I never did anything for you. Okay, well there is one slight problem though. At time of writing, neither of these titles have actually been released. So I guess you could call this a wildcard entry! How kooky! However, for the aspiring photographer on a budget, both Lush Foil Photography Sim and Photography Simulator are set to provide all the equipment and opportunity you could hope for without having to shell out a silly amount of money for a real camera.